welcome to the Players Ball Podcast for AT Aliens by AT Aliens. As always, I'm joined by my co-host MB, the man 2B. I am Alex the Great, 88, if you really want to know. And we're back with some more sports talk. I honestly just want to dive right in, man. I was down in the dumps over the weekend. I just want to tell you why. So I went to the Atlanta United football match, and they lost. It would have been 3-0, but they called one back, so it was 2-0. And what that did to me was put me in a 3-game losing streak in live Atlanta sports. And I really was feeling like, man, what did I do? Right? Uh, while I'm at the United game, one thing about the United game. So I had some pretty good seats. Was down in the club, um, and this was one of the first times. So I've been down there before, but I never really paid a whole lot of attention. I'm just enjoying the club and watching the game on the screen. But this time I walked out to the pitch, and the speed with which that ball and those players are moving in live action was something that I don't feel like I've ever seen before, at least not that close. It was almost alarming. It was like, dang, these guys are small, but they are so fast. Have you noticed that? I know you've been down there before.
Yeah, I mean, I've always known. It's even crazier when you look at like the European game, the
Oh, I
speed
can
at which
imagine.
they play, and it's also the precision that they play with. I think that's probably the biggest difference between the MLS and the Premier League and the European leagues is the precision in which they pass and like the crisp movement of the ball. But yeah, man, the speed in soccer is totally underrated. It's hard to pick up on the film, right? You got to see it live and in color to really get the full experience. But yeah, the crazy athletes, the amount that those
Freaks.
guys run in a single match is absurd. And what's cool is they take all that data, right? Like they have GPS monitors on those guys, and it's a statistic work rate, and they monitor how many miles those guys have run. Uh,
That's nuts.
yeah, so
On one thing that you mentioned, as far as a Premier League versus MLS, what would you say the talent gap is? Give me an analogy from that. Is it like college football to pro football, or where would you put that at?
yeah, man, that's
High
a.
school?
I don't think it's that big of a jump. I think it's probably. I think high school football, not high school. I'm sorry, college football to NFL is a decent analogy. I would say triple A to the majors. I mean, what they say when it's. I mean, you look at some of the games that happened this week, right? We had a Sunday night game. It was the Texans and the Bears, and you got a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams, and they always talk about how the jump from college to the pros is the speed of the game and the
Mm,
speed at which you have to process. And there were a couple plays in which Caleb is scrambling around, making guys miss, and decides to take off. And he gets a positive gain, but it was like 2-3 yards. In college, he's taking that maybe to the house, right?
yeah.
Um, and it's because everyone's fast in the
Right.
pros. So I think that's a pretty fair analogy.
Let me do one more. If we were say NBA to Big Three, because that feels closer than college ball to NBA ball. Is it? Would you think it's closer? Or is college to pros probably accurate?
You know, I've never really watched the big three, but a lot of what those guys are pros that have retired from
Lost
the
step.
league.
Yeah.
Retired from the league. But at in their prime, they were professional. So I don't know if that's such a fair analogy, right? Because you're talking about guys that played at the highest level at one point in their career, right?
Mm. And it's less Messi's in the league. Like the big three is composed of, I would venture to guess 90% former pros. MLS is not. It's actually going the other way, right? They start there, and the goal is to elevate to a Euro League.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Interesting stuff, though.
We Atlanta United is playing Inter Miami tonight, who
Yeah,
has a ton of former European stars, Messi, Ruiz, a couple of I forget what the guy's name he plays for Uruguay. But either way, it's where like the MLS is where the big European stars go to in their career. But
hmm
the pinnacle of the sport is playing overseas, whether it's in the Premier League or in the Bundesliga or the Spanish Premier League or really any of them. So
Bundesliga.
yeah,
Okay, that's good to know, man. The game is very interesting. I'm trying to just be a little bit more involved in it, paying a little bit more attention. Soccer is part of my child's life, so Charlotte seems to really be into it. She had her first like rain game over the weekend. It started as just a dribble, but by the end of the game, it was pouring down, and it was just a bunch of little pre-K and kindergarten kids out there running around kicking the ball aimlessly. But she didn't seem to be having a good time once it started to rain pretty heavily. But a lot of them did. So if that's something that she's interested in, I asked her if she wanted to go to the game after that, and she was like, "Yeah." And if I get good, I can play on the field. I was like, hell yeah, baby, you sure can. So, try to keep my soccer nose dialed in.
yeah. We got real big into it in high school. Our senior year, it was like Brenton and myself, and maybe even Brandon Chambers and a few other people watching highlights of Ronaldinho. And
I do remember that.
there's
Yeah,
some
his Nike commercials. Yeah.
there's some clips. It was what's the guy's name? He's a legend. He's kind of the host, but he did these Jogo TV videos that we used to watch
hmm
on YouTube in YouTube's early days, um, where it's just trick like seeing the flair, right? It's like the equivalent of the what were those
And one
mixtape,
mixtape.
but it wasn't
And one.
like I don't know if it was truly and one level, but like the ankle breakers, the NBA ankle breakers
Yeah.
mixtapes that they would put out, it was like that equivalent, but soccer. Yeah, it was a lot
hmm
of fun. So
Yeah, no, I do remember that. I was less involved than you guys, but I definitely saw some of those clips sitting in math money management with old B Rock. Um, all right. So I'm at the game, and there's another game on the TV in the club. Them dogs, man. And I sat there for a while and watched the game, and I was like, man, what's going on? Is Kentucky defense that good? As a resident dog, our dog Shmi, what the heck was happening on Saturday, man?
it was one of those games. I mean, they happen. Unfortunately, it seems like every year there's at least one. We had our first road game last year in Auburn, and we did not play great. It took a pretty monstrous game from Brock Bowers to pull that one away. I think we had a game at home against South Carolina that they kind of took it to us a little bit. We won these games. We went up to Vandy and basically got into a track fight with them or a track meet with them.
Mm,
And yeah, I mean, they just happen. Kirby Smart says it all the time that it's a very difficult league. It's extremely hard to go on the road in the SEC. and to go on the road and play a night game is extremely tough. Add in the fact that Kentucky was coming off a pretty ugly loss against South Carolina, a team that really came into the season with not very high expectations. And, Kentucky's viewed as one of those like middle tier SEC teams, right? They're not the top dogs like Texas, UGA, Alabama, but they're in that like next tier, kind of with the Ole Miss, the LSUs. They're a step maybe below those two, but they're kind of, I would put them in the same tier level, right? They're not the premier team, but they're not at the bottom. They're not the dumpster, teams like Arkansas and Florida and
I was wondering if you were going to say
Vanderbilt. I mean, it's been a while since the Gators have been
prestigious
good.
program, but yeah, no, they're definitely in the dumps, right?
Yeah, and that has nothing to do with the job. The job as a head coach of UF, that's a great school because it has all of the resources to be in that top tier, right? But they just haven't been there in a decade. So right now they are in the bottom level, based off of on-field performance over the years. But yeah, it's one of those tough games. We went in there and we got kind of punched in the mouth. I don't know what was going on with the offense, but the common narrative is we need a better offensive coordinator. Everyone wants to fire Mike Bobo. Mike Bobo has a long history at UGA. He was offensive coordinator under Mark Richt. He was a former quarterback at the University of Georgia. So a lot of ties to the university. People were pretty displeased with his track record under Mark Richt. And those, that sentiment has not escaped him, regardless of, the time and the actual performance that he's had since coming back to Athens. But, I like to think about it fairly rationally and objectively. And my boy Brooks Austin does a fantastic film study every week. He was pretty quick to do a film review of the offense in the Kentucky game. And he pointed out, and it's there on film, you can go watch it. The play call was not the problem. It was 100% the execution. Like they recognized what Kentucky was doing defensively. They were dialing up plays that beat it. If players just make a block, right? If one guy makes a block, it's there, right? And then what happens on the actual execution is that guy misses a block or sloppy play leads to not being able to do what you want to do offensively. And you get a team at home at night in front of their fans up against the number one team in the country, any room to believe that they can win that game, and it's going to be a battle. Like it's a battle of wills at that point because they're going to have all the juice. They're going to have all the energy and excitement and all the momentum.
One thing they were talking about on the broadcast was Brock Vandergriff, how he spent some years in that QB room with the Dawg. So I think he said like before, and I actually heard this on 929 about how he said still up there, like, he's wishing him the best. Like, man, if you don't get out of here trying to take my competitive edge. So I don't know if that factored in. It didn't look like he got roughed up the way the Georgia front seven usually does. And then I also heard that Carson Beck, because I was watching the game, I saw some bad throws. Now, I don't know if that was poor offensive line play, but it looked like he didn't play that well either. But they did come out with the win. So, I mean, I don't want to focus too heavily on it, but you think either one of those had a factor?
I think for sure. So, Brock Vandergriff graduated from Georgia. He was a 3-year UGA football player, scholarship football player. He grew up around the corner. His dad's a football coach. He's a DGD for what he helped provide the program the last 3 years, but he was in a situation.
VGD.
Damn good dog.
Got it.
He was in a situation where when Carson Beck decided to return this year, he knew he needs 2 years of starting film and experience if he wants to go pro. He didn't want to test the 1 year as a starter and then be forced because of eligibility to try for the NFL. He wanted the full 2 years. So he knew he had to go. It was a hard decision for him. Kirby Smart said in an interview, you know, Brock cried in his office when he had to, you know, inform him of the decision. And, you know, he had a great relationship and they both had tremendous respect for one another. But being in practice, I mean, Brock knows what the defense is going to try to do, right? Like he understands the scheme. It's definitely an advantage preparation wise. And then on the flip side, on the defense, you had Jamon Dumas Johnson, who was a starter for the Dogs, who got injured last year, and he decided to leave. I don't really know the decision. I think that was the biggest shock out of the transfers is JDJ deciding to leave. He, when asked about it, basically said he was trying to get to a point where he was having fun playing football again. I guess it got a little monotonous for him and a little bit too workman and less, you know, enjoying the game. But having him on the defense is the same thing, right? He's a linebacker. He's one of the captains on the defense, and you know, he knows offensively he's been facing these guys for 3 years, what they want to do. So is there an advantage there? Sure. Do I think that played a role in the outcome? Sure. Do I think it was a big role in the outcome? No, I don't. I think it was all those other factors, it being first road game at night in enemy territory. The team you're playing against is coming off a bad loss. They want to make up for that. I think maybe you're looking a little bit ahead because you got a bye week coming up, but then you're going to Tuscaloosa. And I think the players they did not execute. At the end of the day, we got the dub, and that's all that matters. But I do think you have some question marks, and one of them is our left tackle, who's had pretty much 2 straight poor performances. We lost Tate Ratledge, our most seniored offensive lineman, who was having a fantastic game before he had a MCL sprain and a high ankle sprain. He had tightrope surgery, so he's out. I think they're targeting like 6-7 weeks. I don't know. He's going to be out for a decent amount of the season. And then we had a ton of guys missing on the defensive line, a bunch of starters. So I think you add everything up, you know, it's a recipe for disaster. Fortunately, we still got the W, and at the end of the day, that's all. Yeah. You got to take it and survive.
At 1.0929, they did there's these night games in these schools are synonymous with like a song, right? And Kentucky was on the list because they got Waka Flocka, Grove Street Party. I got a whole lot of money. I guess they come out to that. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. I don't know when they play it though, because a lot of times it can be like a pregame, but they'll also do like fourth quarter type things. I think in at Penn State, theirs is going into the fourth quarter. They have their song. South Carolina has, I think it's Darude Sandstorm or one of them. Um,
Yeah, you mentioned Ole Miss. He didn't say Georgia, but they dim the lights up there, right? Do they play the same song every time they do that?
they do, but it's not like a hip hop song. It's like a more traditional band
Yeah.
played song. But they dim the lights. They have the LED red light show. Everyone turns on their light on their camera phone, and oh man, it's a sight to see.
Light of the Bumblebee.
Not quite.
Oh, yeah.
What a great
All right, well,
movie.
man, yeah, it is a good movie. We've referenced it several times on the pod. Check out Drumline, Nick Cannon's best work. I can't think of the guy who says his name. Max
Orlando
Orlando Bloom. Nope. Brown. Nope. It is Orlando though. I don't know. One
Jones.
of the Orlandos.
Is it Orlando
Jones.
Jones?
I think it is Orlando Jones. I won't Google it. We'll post his picture in the description. No, we won't do that either. All right, man. From that, we can stay in football. How about them Falcons? Did you rise up 2 evenings ago?
Yeah, I mean, I was texting you all game. I know you
Yeah.
saw the roller coaster of emotions that I felt.
I mean, it was a lot more valleys than peaks. It was doom and gloom. Like, oh God, what's happening?
So
So I had to stream. I told you I missed half the first quarter because I couldn't get the stream going. Called me a rookie. I was offended. But I did work things out. But I was using my phone to stream, so I didn't see any of your text messages until
after,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the first drive that Philly had the ball, since you missed it, man, they were running the ball down our throat. Saquon was getting 9
Mm.
plus yards a carry. It was like, what the heck are we doing? If they're going to be able to do this all night, we're going to have to score 100 because it looked like we could not stop the run. Thankfully, they got in the red area and stalled out and ended up, I think, having to kick a field goal, or we may have even forced a punt eventually. So they did get tighter. They did lock that down a little bit. And then offensively, man, our first possession, it was very similar to week one. We moved the ball extremely well on the ground. A couple short, pass plays here and there. But again, we got into that red area and had to kick a field goal. And that's where I think my biggest emotional struggle is with this team is like I just can't handle not being able to put the ball in the end zone, because that's been a struggle not just last year but historically for this team, minus the you know uh second greatest show on turf year.
Yep.
But it's always seems to be a struggle for this team, no matter who the coordinator, no matter who the quarterback, no matter who's on the field. We just, there's a bubble around that end zone and we just can't break into it.
Yeah, definitely out on the first drive. Now I agree with that. That is something that you can almost like say it's the Falcons culture to not to trade 3 for 7, like no, or 3 for 6. So that is unfortunate, but that's good. So from the way he started, because I saw I did miss the first drive, but I saw the statistics where they were comparing Saquon to Bijan. Bijan had to have got off on that first drive I missed too, because they were neck and neck. One of them was averaging like 8 yards a carry, the other one was averaging 5.5 or 6 yards. So it was like, man, they were doing some running. I do appreciate the defense. The score isn't reflective of how well I think they played, um, especially considering the tush push. I, how do you stop that? And why hasn't anyone been able to recreate it? That I think that's such an anomaly for me that I just do not get. How do you stop it? And why isn't everyone doing that on 4th and 1 to where it's like, all right, well, if it's 4th and 1, we're just gonna get it first down. Right? Why isn't that
So
a walk?
I have the same exact thoughts as you. It is odd to me that Philly is the only or one of the few teams that is running this play, right? Because it's near 100% success rate. Uh, you ask how you stop it. I mean, the results speak for themselves. Teams are obviously not approaching it the right way. And I think,
Right.
I they played a replay on one of them where I noticed where Jalen goes to the left, and I think it's Lorenzo Carter who's like trying to jump over the pile as someone submarines. And once you're off your feet, if you've got a quarterback or someone with the ball with their feet planted on the ground, like they're going to bounce off you, right?
Oh, Lorenzo Carter, pretty big. It's like a refrigerator. Yeah.
And Hurts is a pretty big dude as well. So it just looked like, even if Lorenzo had made contact, Jalen would have just kind of bounced off. And I think that's actually what occurred on the play. And because he had left his feet, he had no way to drive them backwards. And so I just think the approach is wrong. Clearly, teams have not figured out the right way to attack it because of the success rate. I think it's kind of a cheap play. I don't think it's really in the spirit of the game, but it doesn't look like anyone's going to make a change rules wise to get it out of the game, at least not anytime soon.
So I know the originator of the move. I don't know if he's the one who originated it, but there is a big boy on the offensive line for the Eagles. I can't think of his name, but he was formerly a rugby player, New Zealander, a Kiwi, and maybe the solution lies in that, right? I think that's called a scrum, a rugby scrum. So maybe they're gonna have to line up like a rugby scrum. I don't know if that's allowed in the NFL because you're getting so much leverage off of like interlocking arms and shoulders and stuff. But maybe it's not allowed. Maybe that's why they're not doing it. But the other part of it is why aren't other offenses doing it? It just seems like such an easy way to get a yard.
Yeah, I think to a point in that game where we went for it on fourth down, and everyone in the stadium, you could see it from outer space that we were gonna hand that ball to Bijan, and it was gonna be a run.
Hmm.
And of course, we get stuffed, right? And it's just like
Yeah.
this should be a guaranteed first down if you're running the Eagles tush push offense, right? But
Penalty or no penalty on the helmet? Did he take his helmet off?
I think that it's a penalty. I
I do
know
too.
I know they said his helmet was falling off, and I don't know the rules of it, but he pushes it off.
Hmm.
Like I could understand if it's falling off and it falls off, but instead of pushing the helmet off the head, he could have put it back on, right? Like,
Easy.
yeah. Instead, he pushes it off and shows his face to everyone, and does that whole spiel. It's a flag.
Yeah, ran on. Yeah, that was definitely flat. What about so he's since come out and apologized more or less, but that Drake firing that blicky up into the air, man. I thought that was Brittany was like, "Oh my God, they're gonna say something about that." I was like, "Yeah, they definitely are," but I'm with it though. It's for the game, so
Yeah, no, I was worried. 48 yards field goal
yeah,
to take the lead. I was like, oh no, man, we're gonna tie and then we're gonna blow this thing uh, because of that penalty. Luckily, I
yeah.
was wrong.
Big up to Youngway for not allowing that to knock him off his game. He's sliced that thing right down the middle. So
Yeah, he had plenty
that
of
was a
leg.
great game. Great, yeah. Plenty of leg, plenty of space left and right. A lot of margin for error. So he did his thing. I think a lot of people did that thing. What's my man's name? New wide receiver. I keep wanting to call him Rondell Moore, but I know Rondell's done for the
You
season.
got Darnell Mooney and
Darnell
Ray
Mooney.
and
Yeah.
Ray McLeod.
Yeah. Yeah, shout out to both of those guys. Just Judon got him another one. He's just it feels like he's revving up. Grady got back there again, so I'm happy uh, with the defense for sure. Right? They couldn't stop the tush push. No one has figured that out. Um, and Jalen had some meaningful runs. He actually was getting pretty active. I hadn't seen him run like that in a while.
That was a frustrating thing to me early in that game is defensively. So, Saquon comes out, they run the ball pretty well. We seem to get a hold of that, right? And start stuffing
Mhm.
them, holding them to 1-2 yard runs. And then they're not really throwing the ball effectively. Not AJ Brown not being on the field was huge.
Huge. Yeah.
But Jalen absolutely crushed us with his legs over and over. And honestly, like as a whole, I was glad to see the defense play the way they did. But if there's anywhere to nitpick, it would
Mm.
be still the lack of pass rush. I mean, it seemed like at some points in that game, Jalen had an eternity back there. And then just not being able to contain him. It killed us with Fields. Last year was a big problem. That's why Josh Dobbs had a career day against us. So I'd
Yeah.
like to see those things get cleaned up. But overall, they kept us in the game.
Yeah, they did. I think AJ Terrell played really good. He had a lot of tackles if you go to the stats. I told you last week he was like one of my biggest concerns, right? I thought he played some great coverage on the outside when Tay Smith was on the outside. We didn't hear a lot from Jahan Dotson, and I think the reason, at least this is what I would attribute, some of the reason why Jalen was able to get active like that. One, lack of pass rush, but without that pass rush, he still wasn't delivering a whole lot of passes. That's when he would get out of the pocket. And I thought the coverage, that's a reflection of good coverage. Now, maybe that good coverage also necessitated us not having a spy on him. But even when he did, like there was a run that he had, one of the longer ones when he got into the red zone. I was telling Brittany, I was like, what, they have to put a body on him. He's running through arm tackles. I'm like, this is your chance. Obviously you don't want to hurt him or kill him, but you got to let him feel you. You know, let him know you're there. He got up from that play like, he shrugged it up. All right, bet. That was loose. That was nothing. And if you get an opportunity to hit the quarterback as a runner, you need to hit him as a runner. Right? All this friendly stuff, we ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
Um, what about the offense? Bijan looked really good. He did have that fumble, which we talked about that over the offseason. I was like, no, Bijan, don't do that. But other than that one hiccup there, he looked great. Tyler Algier looked great. That's a lot to deal with when you got those. It's no breaks for the defense when you have those two backs relieving each other. Uh, phrasing, right? But when there's not a massive downgrade in any capacity when you have Tyler Algier waiting in the wings. He's quick. He's probably a bit stronger than Bijan and just as physical, right? It's all gas for that defense, and you're gonna wear some folks out. There was a chip block that I saw. I actually didn't see this live, but I saw a highlight of it where I think he hit like a safety that was blitzing. Bijan did. I'm talking about laid him out, took him off his feet. I'm gonna drop a bunch of clips in the description
I,
this
I
week.
I don't think that was a safety. I think that was your boy Nolan Smith. Unfortunately,
Was it really?
I think so. I'm pretty
He looked
sure.
small.
We'll have to go back and verify that, but I think that was Nolan Smith getting lit up, taking off his feet. Unfortunately, on
Mm,
that particular play, Kirk Cousins got sacked.
he did. He
Yeah.
did, but heck of a chip though.
yeah. Yeah. anytime you can decleat a defender,
Oh yeah.
it's gonna make the highlight tape. You know,
Hmm.
you asked about the offense in general. It's crazy when you look at a comparison week 1 to week 2. Like it wasn't the same scheme, right? Like Arthur Smith took the offense back with him to
He
Pittsburgh.
literally was calling both offenses in the bins in week 1, right?
It definitely feels that way. And it's like we didn't even run much in the pistol formation, I don't think, at all. You saw Kurt under center, you saw some play action, like all these things that you didn't see. And I know on the radio they talked about, well, because of the noise, the outside noise, they're going to come out and he's going to be under center first play, and it's just going to be, all to try and show the fan base and the media that they're reading into it too much. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
But
it worked out. I liked it.
I did. I do want to see more though, right? I texted you during that game early that I don't think Bijan was the pick. He's a fantastic talent. He's got tremendous skill.
Bijan was a bad pick. I missed that one.
Yeah, and the reason why I feel the way I do about that is because you have Tyler Algier. And I just feel like it was a pick that a team takes when they have the luxury of picking a skill position high and they don't have a bunch of holes everywhere else. And I think we took Bijan after taking Drake London and Kyle Pitts in successive years, right? And yes, Bijan out of the 3 has been the most productive. He was also the last one picked of the 3. So when you look at it in the sequence of events, it's like at the time, we probably should have gone a different direction. And we need more production out of those other 2 guys. That's the one unsatisfying feeling I have about how the offense has played up to this point. Kyle Pitts, I think, had 2 catches, 2 targets. Drake London had a few. He had the big touchdown at the end, but not nearly enough for what these guys were sold to us as, right?
Kyle Pitts it's a long season, and I'm still hopeful for him. I think he's a bad pick. I think Bijan was an excellent pick still because of what I was saying about how you can just stay on a defense's neck if you have both him and Tyler Algier, as long as you're using them both. Now, in the Steelers game, they didn't use Tyler Algier.
They didn't
He
use
had
him.
3 runs, so.
They didn't use him a whole lot more in.
Oh, a ton more. He got a lot more touches.
I think he got twice as many, but when the first is 3, it's not really saying a whole lot. 6, I think he had under 12 carries, probably under 10 in that game. And that's just.
He had 9.
Yeah. So.
To Bijan's 14, though. That's a much more split.
It is. That is a much more
than 18-3, which was the first week.
That is.
And Drake was tied for first in targets with Darnell Mooney.
He had a few that he should have caught that he did not. I will say Kyle Pitts had probably one of the biggest catches in that game besides Drake London on that last drive where I think it's 3rd and long, and he catches it right about the sticks and dives forward to get the first, keep that drive alive. So he didn't have a lot, but at least one of them was very meaningful.
You know what I thought when he did that? He looks like a scared rookie. I literally had that thought when he did that. I was like, Good job, Kyle. All right. Good job. Let's
No.
keep it going.
I do think
But
that,
this, Bijan is a way better pick than Kyle Pitts, man.
yeah, the
Like,
problem
I
is
don't even
is
think it's close.
you had already picked Kyle though. Like the capital's already spent. So you got to get your value out of it.
Now we got to get our value out of it, and we haven't, and we may never. I think at 8, we are seeing some value out of Bijan that's closer to where we picked him. Whereas Kyle Pitts, we're not seeing anything.
I agree.
He's an undrafted free agent. All right.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly not great by the numbers. But I do think as the season progresses that all those guys will get more in rhythm and we should see their production increase. I do think there are several instances in that game where the timing was off and you could
Yeah.
tell that the cohesion between Kirk and the receivers just wasn't quite there. There was one drive before half, the drive right before half that we kick a field goal. I think I texted
Mhm.
you then, like that should have been 7. You watch the
Yeah.
replay, and there are open receivers if you hit them coming out of their cuts. And it was the hesitation from Kirk Cousins that ultimately leads to us not scoring a touchdown there. And I think they can clean
Yeah.
those up with time, right? More
Yeah,
reps.
I mean, he cleaned it up by the end of the game. Not completely, but he looked that 2-minute drill that they ran in the last minute was phenomenal. They I don't know if it was the speed or attrition. I told you, like having those two backs running at you all game, you're gonna be tired. You're like the middle of the field is gonna be tired because they were breaking through the first level every play, right? So their linebackers, your safeties had to get active. So by the end of the game, I'm sure they're tired. And then you just have some well placed balls by Kurt. Um, he was real. There's another clip that I'll share, but he was very calm, collected after he threw that touchdown to Drake London until he got to the sidelines. He's like, slammed his helmet down. I was like, man, yeah, that's the Kirk Cousins I thought we signed. So I am very encouraged. I think that there's definitely some things to correct, but the opportunity to grow is there, and I think they're gonna do it.
I'm gonna say the same thing I said about the Dogs. I mean, being able to go on the road and come home with a victory, even if it's by 1 point or 100 points, they all feel the same, right? The W is a W, and
Man, after that game, it felt like a Super Bowl win almost playoff win. That felt like a playoff win.
Monday night we haven't played a Monday night game in a while. You know, Kurt has this uh, kind of stigma about not doing well in primetime games, this and that. So to kind of debunk that, to get the first win of the year on the road after such a disappointing opener and staring down a week 3 matchup against the 2-time defending Super Bowl champs, that's a huge win. It has the ability to really build some momentum and spring us forward because right now, I don't want to say their names, but that team a little west of here in that dirty swamp, they look like a force. So we're gonna need to get it together and bring our A game these coming weeks.
100%. So I didn't text Carlos that night,
Oh,
right?
I did.
I know you did. You told you said you like that. Right? I texted him the next day, just something calm. I said, "Hey, look, man, I don't know really what you're going through, but I appreciate you and the Eagles for giving that momentum shift of a win. And if I can ask one thing of you is to bring the Saints back down to earth because I think they play them the week before we play them.
Mm.
So, um, and they do look good. The hater in me wants to say otherwise, but
I don't remember everything that was said towards Carlos, our resident Eagles fan, whose second favorite thing to do is just hate on Atlanta teams.
Mhm.
Um, I don't remember all that was said, but I called him out immediately in the group text. I said, "Where you at? I don't hear you. You're
Oh,
awfully quiet." And then I sent him the "you like that" gif.
he responded with an emoji that I hadn't seen before. It was the anger emoji, the red face emoji, but it had the tape over the mouth with the the expletives, right?
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I hadn't seen that before. That's creative." I'm sure he
Hey,
didn't make it, but well used.
the one thing I love about Carlos is he likes to dish it out, but he can take it. So
He can.
yeah, it's all in good
And he's
fun.
gonna come back firing at first opportunity, right? We gotta stay on our toes. Let the Hawks do something goofy. It doesn't even have to be related to the last event, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. My first text was "Where you at, Carlos?" And it was the crazy lady from Squid Games, like pointing and laughing. There were
uh,
there were a few other messages after that, and he hadn't said anything. So I'm like, "Come on, don't run and hide now."
well played, man. Well, from happier news, and won't have a lot of time to talk about it, but from happier news to sadder news, man. Los Bravos, couple of terrible um, late inning finishes. Like it's three in a row, really. Both the Dodgers games, that last game they blew it out the park. Like Max Fried didn't have a great start, but it wasn't terrible. Um, and then what happened with the Reds last night has just been symptomatic of our whole season, right? We put up the runs necessary. Um,
Good
and I
starting
know it was a
pitching.
bullpen game. Yeah. Yeah, shorter starters, but then you get Jesse Chavez coming in there, and I forgot who else gave up all those runs, but the relief not hold us down, man, and now we're 2 games out of the playoffs or out of the wild card right now.
Yeah, I mean we're currently sitting at a game and a half because we won tonight, and the Mets game is still
7-1,
going.
nice.
But the Mets are up 10-0, so and I think it's in like the eighth or ninth. So that game's going to close shortly, and we're going to be 2 games behind the Mets, and then we will be 3 games behind Arizona. So honestly, I think there is a world in which both the Mets and the Braves get into the playoffs, um, and that is by way of Arizona falling out. But big series coming up, and I really don't want to get into a situation where we have to sweep in order to get in. I think that's a recipe for disaster for this team, as they've pretty much shown that they can play 2 games and be really good, and then the following 2 games, more than likely you're going to drop one, and the fourth is going to be a coin flip. So
Yeah. It's incredibly important that we need to sweep the Marlins. Right, they're bottom of the barrel team. I don't know why they've given us fits. I think we have a very solid run on them, but we haven't swept them this year that I can remember.
we
Well,
haven't
it doesn't feel like we swept anybody, but the Marlins are trash. We have to sweep them. We got to beat the teams that we should beat.
We have not swept many this year, that is for sure. I think it's probably in the single digits, the number of teams that we've swept, maybe under 5. Um, there have been some, but they've been few and far between. Um, I feel like we've gotten swept more than we've swept.
I don't feel like that's happened a ton either. But we're used to sweeping people on occasion, man, and that just hasn't happened at all. I definitely remember being swept this year. Just want to see if I was talking nonsense about the Marlins.
I think we have a
Kitty
pretty
kitty.
good
Uh-oh.
record against them this year. But in years past, we have had trouble. Now, the Washington Nationals, who the Mets absolutely manhandled tonight, we did not. I think we lost the season series against the Nationals, which is pretty pathetic given the Nationals' overall record. So,
We split a 4-game series with the Marlins in August. I know we had to have played them before that, but I don't actually see it.
yeah.
But splitting with a team as sorry as that, right? It gotta take three. And in a 3-game series, we need that same three, man.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets have been on a tear. They went, 13, 14 games straight without losing. And then even since then, they've only dropped a game here or there. I mean, they're winning, they're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. I don't think they lost too many against the Phils in their 3-game set. I know they have some more games against some good teams. I think they have some more against the Phillies. I think they play us, the Phillies, and the Royals to end out the year.
We play the Royals. Brewers.
Oh, they play the Brewers. We play the Royals. Brewers are a solid team too.
They are for sure.
But yeah, we got to win the ones that we're supposed to win. That's something that this team has not done consistently this year.
100%. Yeah, it was just those 4 that we played them. So we're split with the Marlins, which one of the worst teams in baseball. The worst team in no, second worst team in baseball. Gotta win all of them.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be tough. So I gave my thoughts on it. I don't. The way this season's been going, I just don't see us making it. But if we can get that magic, man, I'm all for it. I want to. They have my support, just not necessarily my optimism. Because even when we can't get all phases of the game right. Either starting pitching is awesome, relief is good, can't get the bats going. Bats are good, the starting pitching is trash. Relief closes it out, right? Or the starting pitching is good, bats are good, relief blows it. That's actually feels like that's been the most frequent occurrence. But all that said, I did see that Ozzy, he started his rehab assignment last night, I believe. He played again tonight, so it does look like we'll probably get him back before the end of the season, maybe at least for that last series, so he can get his feet wet if we are to make the big dance. But still go Braves. Just we'll see where we end up.
Put those rally caps on because we need them.
Yeah, yeah. It's terrible for a hat, though. I always looked at people crazy when I saw them doing the rally. It's like, man, why are you doing that to your hat? You look silly, right? Just cheer louder.
Watching Trevor Bauer's vlogs, he'll do what he calls like a rally burger or a rally dog, and it's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, folded in half like a hot dog.
Huh. Okay. I thought you were going rally burger like he was flipping his buns the opposite way. So there was like
No,
inner
not
bun out. That sounds weird. I might try it though.
make a
That's basically a Texas, right? Texas. It's not Texas toast, but that's kind of how it would probably feel on the bite.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, man. I am excited about the Falcons though. So on the game on Sunday, they're giving out free hot dogs, chips, and drinks to everyone in attendance.
You got to break the streak, dog. Like
I gotta break the streak. This has to be it. I can't. If we lose this one, man, I don't know what I do, man.
I think I need you to between now and Sunday, I need you to go to another local event and just test the waters. And if it doesn't go well, then you need to sell those tickets.
Oh man, I wonder if the Dreamer in town could crush their playoff hopes. I think they're on the outside looking in right now, but I go to a game, feels like they're gonna lose. But I'm optimistic about the. It would be the Chiefs where I break the streak, right? Because we go in there, we're not supposed to win. There's people already saying that we lost. Like, oh yeah, we really needed that win so we could go 1-2. It's like you quitters. What's wrong with y'all? Bunch of
uh,
Scott Van Pelts, man.
I was just gonna say you brought it up. I saw a clip of it. I forget who the guy his counterpart was on the broadcast, but yeah, they had the Falcons cooked with like over 2 minutes to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, that's plenty of time. We got all our timeouts. It was him and I don't think Troy commented on it, but
Mm.
what's my boy? Joe Buck.
Joe Buck,
Joe
that
Buck
was
was
it.
definitely a naysayer as well, yeah.
I don't like Joe Buck. Period. I think it's crap that he calls the World Series games. I just
Mm.
I'm not a fan of a lot of announcers. At least the national ones. Give me a homer all day long.
Yeah, I would have loved to watch the game on ESPN with like the graphics and things that they do while listening to Dave Archer and our
What?
other announcer,
Di-
Wes
yeah.
Durham. Yeah. What national? This is our bonus content. We appreciate you staying around. Like, subscribe, follow us on the gram. Players Ball Pod. No TikTok yet. There is only one picture so far. We're gonna fire our social media manager and hire another one. But what national broadcaster do you like? I have a favorite. Is why I ask.
Honestly, football wise, I
Yeah.
I didn't mind Troy Aikman at all. I didn't really care for him as a player, but as a broadcaster, I find him to be pretty decent. That's Tony Romo. Trying to think who else. I'm not I don't mind Kurt Herbstreit. I think he does
Mm,
a great job. He's done a great job for many years in the college game, and he does a good job, I think, for the NFL as well. It's some of the old
that's
heads.
mine. I like Al Michaels. Is my favorite. But I do like him with Kurt Kirk Herbstreit on the Thursday night games.
Who
Um,
was Al Michaels his counterpart for so many years? I couldn't stand that guy.
Chris Collinsworth.
Chris Collinsworth, yeah. He was such a New England Patriots fanboy. I couldn't stand it.
Tom Brady stan.
Yeah.
I didn't have a huge fan. He's definitely not at the top of my list though. I'm not a hater, but I'm also not a huge fan of Chris Collinsworth. So yeah, the Thursday night games, that broadcast, now that they're putting actual teams on there, I mean, that last Thursday game wasn't very good with Tua's concussion, and I don't know why Tyreek and Jalen Waddle were sitting out, third quarter and fourth quarter, but uh, speedy recovery to Tua while we talk about it, but that one wasn't very good. There's two Thursday night games this week. I don't think either one of them are going to be very good, but I do like Al Michaels and Kurt Herbstreit. That first one was good.
Yeah, I mean they've had some really good matchups, I think, in general for their primetime games.
Hmm.
Like you said, the Miami who was it, Buffalo that they played?
Yeah, Miami and
Um
Buffalo.
it wasn't the best outcome, but early that game was pretty good. It
Yeah.
just got kind of out of control late.
And they're supposed to be two competent teams. They both made the playoffs last year, so they had some good opponents, some highly ranked opponents in there. How about the NFC South, man? They're talking about we're in the dumps. All three teams just beat playoff teams from last year. The Saints really did. They put it on Dallas, man. They looked crazy good, or I don't know if no, they looked a lot. They looked very good, more so than Dallas looked really bad.
Yeah.
And then the Bucks went in there and beat the Lions in a rematch.
I think the Bucks are a decent team, right? Like
I do too. Yeah.
I don't think they're as bad as people think they are. I also don't think they're as good as like some of their wins might say they are, right?
Mm.
Because that is a good Detroit team that they beat, but I still don't. I don't think that Tampa is in the top tier. I honestly haven't watched the Saints to say one way or another. However, the scores and the opponents and just kind of the gaudy numbers that they're putting up offensively, you can't help but think on paper they look pretty scary, right?
It's like 90 points in 2 weeks. Without the Falcons playing in the 1 o'clock spot, I did watch that game. I sat there, I did two full loads of laundry while the Saints Cowboys played. So I watched basically that entire game. They looked the part. It's not just flash and highlights. They excelled in all phases of the game.
So I had this thought, and this is Derek Carr's second year in New Orleans, and they brought him in. There was all the hype. Basically, they expected him to come out and be that guy. And I can't help but look at our franchise and see some parallels, right? We brought in Kirk. We expect him to be that guy. Hopefully, it doesn't take a whole year. But, it took time for Derek Carr to mature in that system in a new place. And it's showing this year. I wonder, knock on wood, how it's going to play out for Kurt, right? I definitely think year 2 should be better in theory than year 1, but hopefully year 1 is pretty darn good.
Two things I would say to rebut that, and then we can wrap. Um, Kurt is better than Derek Carr. It has been the last couple of years. That's one. Derek Carr actually got a brand new offensive coordinator this year, so he's dealing with a new system. So maybe it was the coaching or the coordinator that was the problem last year, more so than it was taking Derek Carr a full year to get the swing of the offense, because now it's a brand new offense. It's Kubiak's son. I think his name is Clint, but Gary Kubiak used to be the head coach of the Texans for a while. I remember that name. Cool name. Kurt's doing a year 1, baby. We're headed up. We'll see how far this train will climb this year.
And Derek also got dinged up pretty hard last year, right? Like he was out for the season. I think that was midway through or pretty early in the season he got knocked out.
Yeah, I think it was midway. He didn't look good before that, but he didn't make a full season though. Because I remember Jameis coming in there, eating his W's. Gotta love Jameis, man. Gotta love that guy.
So we can end on this. Have you seen anything about Dylan Raiola? Do you know who that is?
I do.
Okay.
I don't know where he is. Nebraska?
Yeah.
And he was a Georgia commit, and he decommitted and went somewhere else. Georgia kid, like of the state.
No, so he has a wild high school story.
California.
He was Arizona, I think is where he lived. And he moved out, finished at Buford High School for his senior year because he was going to go to UGA. He's the son of a former professional offensive lineman who played in Detroit with Matt Stafford, grew up, around Matt Stafford, idolizing him in a lot of ways. Matt Stafford, a Georgia guy, following in his footsteps, so to speak. And at the last minute, he decides to flip the commitment, go to Nebraska, where his dad played, where his uncle is like the offensive line coach, or, they've got a lot of family ties. They offered him, a decent amount of NIL money to come. Probably the right decision for him and his family, just given the circumstances, right, with the family relations and everything. But he's played outstanding. But the big news about him, or the talking point, is all of this stuff he's doing to emulate
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, like got the haircut, got the glasses, doing the exact same pregame, like straight up 100% mimicking him. And
Mhm.
they were joking. I had an appointment on Monday. It was at like 1:30, so it was, I don't remember who was on the radio at the 1 o'clock window, but they were just kind of joking around that I think it was Andy and Randy, um, just like asking questions about what people's take is on his mimicking, and it's to a different level. You know, people always mimic Michael Jordan, like Kobe is probably the biggest name, but it was never to the extreme at which it seems to be with Dylan. And the joke was, the punchline was, when are we going to see a guy, or what guy they should be out there mimicking is Jameis.
Yeah. Man, if you got a little more game. Well, James was fire in college. He had some good pro years too, and he's still in the league. But that man's energy and motivation, man. I'm gonna start playing Jameis pregame speeches as my alarm in the morning and see how that changes my day because he's going off, man.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
his pro career has not turned out to be what people thought it would be. Um, Nor has Bryce Young's to this point. You know, you brought up the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers are in the dumps.
Yeah, they look terrible.
But no, I think we're primed to take the division, man.
We're gonna have some obstacles. The Saints and the Buccaneers do look like obstacles, but I agree. We're primed to take it. We're gonna go out there and get it done, man. So on that,
Likes,
rise up, baby.
like, subscribe, comment. You know, add us on Instagram. It's Players Ball Pod, POD, Players Ball Pod on Instagram. We'll link that this week and moving forward down in the description. But we appreciate everyone listening, staying with us this long. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and we'll keep bringing you guys some Atlanta sports content.
Catch you on the flip.
Peace.
Peace.